Hey everybody, welcome to Vance Tried It. Today I'm going to be making some scalloped potatoes. I found this recipe on a YouTube channel called Southern Country Living. And the lady who made these, Marie, she made these scalloped potatoes and a couple other items, but I think this was really the star of the show. And I'm going to be making some changes to it because whenever I can make a meal all in one place, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to actually be including some ground hamburger in here. And I'm also going to be putting some cheese on top. And other than that, the base of the recipe is going to be the recipe that she provides there on that channel. I'll include that down in the description so you can go watch that video on your own. And hey, while you're down there, go ahead and leave a comment, share, like, and subscribe to this channel. That way you can see more of these amazing videos. I'm going to be taking some of these yellow potatoes. I'm going to be slicing them. I have my mandolin set at 1/8 of an inch because that's what Marie said to do. So I'm going to go ahead and slice these bad boys up. And I'll just get back to you whenever I have them ready to go. And we're ready to move on to the next section of making these scalloped potatoes. Okay, I have my skillet heating up. I'm going to be browning this ground beef here. Open it up. And just put it in like that. Now, one of the questions to always ask is, how do you brown this meat and how do you break it up? And so there's really a couple of options that I like. So here's one option that I often use, and this is just a potato masher that has the wide prongs on it, one of the metal ones, and I think it works very well. Just coming on in here and getting the beef all broken up. So I'll use this, or I actually have this here. My daughter got me this for Christmas. And this is actually specifically designed for just this purpose. Going in and breaking up your ground beef. Either one of those works fine. Of course, you can use a spatula if you want to. I am not the biggest fan of using a spatula for this, just because I think it leaves a lot of really big chunks because it's really hard to get it evenly broken up. I always like to season my ground beef while I'm cooking it. This is just seasoned salt. I'm going to put in here a pretty generous amount. And I put in a generous amount because when I drain this off, some of that is going to come off of here. So don't be afraid if you're going to season your ground beef before you drain it. Go ahead and put more than you think you will want on there because some of that is going to come off when you drain it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this ground beef browned up, and then we'll come back and take our next step of what we're going to do to get these scalloped potatoes ready to go in the oven. Okay, so we have our ground beef all browned up, and now we're going to get started on our sauce that we're going to make for this scalloped potato dish. And so we're going to start off with a 1/4 cup, that's a half a stick of butter. I'm just using the same skillet that I use for my ground beef, so we're going to put that in there. We're going to let that melt down. Spread it around in here. And to that, we're going to add 1 diced onion. And you can probably hear that sizzle right there. That always sounds good coming from your skillet to get a little sizzle going. Whew. Throwing throwing onion pieces all over the place. Now, what Marie said to do is go ahead and cook these onions for a couple minutes before you add the garlic. But I kind of like a little bit of toasted garlic, so I'm going to go ahead and add the garlic in right at the beginning, because if they toast up a little bit, it is definitely not going to hurt my feelings any. And once again, we're just getting these onions to where they're translucent. And really what we're trying to do is we're trying to break down the oils in the onions. And it's really going to release that sweet flavor from these Vidalia onions that I have here. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to keep cooking these, and then I'll get back to you when they're done and we're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so we have the onions cooked down and they're pretty translucent right now, and garlic is starting to toast a little bit. I wish you could smell what this smells like, because it is starting to smell really good. Well, now what we're going to do is we're going to take a 1/4 cup of flour. I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of flour in here. And basically what we're doing is we're making a roux. Now, don't be afraid of roux. A lot of people get really frightened when they hear that word, but don't worry about it, because it's going to be all right. The key to remember is you just have to keep stirring it, move it around, and you want to let it get to a nice golden brown color. So what happens a lot of time, you're making a roux for a gravy or something, and that's basically what we're making here, is a gravy that's going to go over our potatoes when we're making our au gratin potatoes, or scalloped potatoes I should say. But basically, you just need it to get golden brown. If you take it off too early, then what you're going to end up is you're going to end up with a gravy that tastes like flour. You don't want your gravy to taste like flour, because I don't know if you've ever just eaten flour by itself, but it doesn't really taste that good. So just keep this moving around in here. Don't let it burn. You don't want to get it a dark brown, but you want it a nice golden brown. Keep it spread out and move it around so that we can get that floury taste out of our roux. And that is exactly the point we're getting to. We're almost there. And really, if you have to err on one side or the other, err on the side of a little bit too much cooking, rather than the err on the side of not enough cooking. Because a floury scalloped potato is not what we're looking for. And you can even start to smell the difference in what it smells like. And you're just looking right now for all the lighter parts of it. Okay, let me show you what we have here. So as you can see here, we're starting to get browned in here. That's the color we're looking for. That's where we want it to get to make this roux. So we're going to now go to the next step, And what we have is we have 2 cups of milk and 1 cup of beef broth. Now, Marie used chicken broth, but since I'm putting hamburger in here to make it a kind of a one-pot meal, we're going to go with some beef stock. And so what I want you to do is go ahead and add, just eyeball it, about 1/3 of the milk, and then about 1/3 of the stock. You could even use a vegetable stock if you wanted to. And we're going to go ahead and put that in here. And the great thing about putting it in here, go ahead and scrape the bottom of that skillet, because we're wanting to scrape all that stuff off of there. All that liquid you put in here, it starts to steam up and get hot, and it makes that stuff on the bottom break up, and it thickens back up pretty quickly. So we're just going to do it again. Put another 1/3 of the milk in. Put another 1/3 of the broth in. And just keep it stirred up. And what we're wanting to do now is we're wanting to break that roux down. Because really, what the roux became was kind of like a paste. And so we're just wanting that paste to kind of dissolve. And as it dissolves, because of it's flour based, it starts to thicken up this liquid here. And so if you see any like clumps, just don't be afraid to kind of flatten them out a little bit with the flat of your spatula. That's what I do. Keep scraping the bottom of the skillet to get all those good bits and pieces off the bottom there. And we're going to go ahead and add now the last of our milk, the last of our broth. We're going to let that cook up real good, mix it up, let it continue to thicken a little bit. And we don't quite want this the consistency of a gravy. If we were making gravy right now, we would really let this cook down and thicken up. But we don't want it super thick. But we do want probably to just let this come to a nice little boil here. Because once it starts boiling, it's really going to start to thicken up really quick. So we're just going to kind of let it get up to a boil. I can't find any more really of the roux undissolved in here. So I think we're good, other than just letting it come to a boil. But while we're waiting for that to boil, let me ask you this. What's your favorite type of potatoes to eat? I really like mashed potatoes. I really like fried potatoes, scalloped potatoes, au gratin potatoes, French fried potatoes. I like potatoes. Now, I try to cut down on the starch a little bit so I don't eat as many potatoes as I actually would like to eat, because I could really eat potatoes for every meal. But why don't you let me know down in the comments, what's your favorite potato side dish? I tell you what, I grew up on fried potatoes, really. That was really what my mom made for a lot of meals, was fried potatoes, some onions in there, and you know, the family would always fight to see who got the crispy parts, because that's really my favorite part of the fried potatoes. And that's one of the reasons I like going to Lambert's. I don't know if you've ever been to Lambert's in Sykeston or in Ozark, and I think there's one in Alabama. But they have these things called pass around, so you order your meal, and then there's people, they just come around with all these different sides and things that you can just go ahead and get extra to whatever you ordered. And one of the pass arounds they bring around is fried potatoes. So it is always a good place to get fried potatoes. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and take this off of the burner. It is just about the consistency that we are wanting it to be. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this burner cool down a little bit so we can get our a pan on there so you can see what we're going to do when we put this all together. So I'm going to come back to you when we're ready to put this all together. Okay, so we're back. We have everything set up. We have a pan here that I have greased up. We have our potatoes. We have our gravy basically going there, and we have this ground beef. And so what you're going to do is you're going to start off, you're just going to take about a third of these potatoes, line the bottom of your dish. And then you get a dipper here. We're going to just dip some of this out here, put over here. Once again, this is just basically a third of everything, so we're going to try and get about a third of our sauce on here. And we'll just use this spatula that I dropped out of there when I was getting the ladle. I'm just going to put about a third of the ground beef on here. Spread it out a little bit. And just repeat that process one more time here. Another third of our gravy here. Some of this ground beef. The rest of our potatoes on here. All of them I don't drop on the ground anyway. And just try to fill in whatever holes you have here. Try to get it kind of flat as you can. We'll use up the rest of this gravy. Use our spatula. Make sure we get all the good stuff out of here. Don't want to leave any good stuff in the pan. Then we'll put the last of our ground beef on here. Get pepper on here. Bit of salt. And then what we're going to do is we have this oven heated up to 350. So we're going to cover this in foil. We're going to put it in this 350 degree oven for 45 minutes. Then we're going to take the foil off. We're going to put some cheese on top, and we're going to put it back in the oven for another 45 minutes. So let's get this started. And we'll get back to it after 45 minutes, and it is ready to unfoil and put cheese on it. Okay, so we've had the scalloped potatoes in the oven for 45 minutes, and we're going to take the foil off now, put some cheese on top, and put them back in the oven. Well, what I have here is some fancy shredded cheddar jack cheese that I'm just going to put on top. Oh goodness, something fell down over there. I don't know what it was, but it didn't sound like it broke, so I think we're all right. So, there's a couple ways to do this when you're putting cheese on stuff like this. And one theory is, go ahead and wait till like the last 15 minutes. And that way the cheese will just melt as it comes out, and it'll be all just right like that. But you know what? I like to put my cheese on a little bit longer. Let it really melt. Let the cheese actually cook. Give it time to really get down in there. And hey, if it even gets a little bit crispy on top, that's even better. Because there's nothing wrong with some crispy cheese on your casserole. So let's put this back in the oven. See what happens. All right, I'll see you in 45 minutes. Okay, so we are done cooking these scalloped potatoes with hamburger in them. And so let's open this up and get them out the oven. Ooh. Oh, well, it definitely looks good. Let's get this oven turned off. We're going to let this cool off a little bit because it is way too hot to taste right now. But we're going to let it cool off, and then we'll come back and see what it tastes like. Okay, we are cooled off now. It is time to see what this tastes like. Let's just scoop some of this out of here. Oh, nice and creamy. And that cheese on top is just the way I like it. Melted and a little bit of crunch to it. I can tell as I cut through those potatoes that they are nice and silky and cooked all the way through. Okay. This is delicious. I mean, I'm telling you what. I think this would be good if you're just making a side dish of scalloped potatoes. These would be good. But I tell you what, you put that little bit of ground beef in there, put that cheese on top, and this is a one-pan meal like none other. Hey, I tried it. You should too.